I'm going to walk you through how to draw Kaa step by step, and by the end of this, you'll have a sketch that you can take home. So with that being said, are you ready to get started?
Yes.
All right, so Kaa's going to look like, at first, an elephant holding like a butter stick. So that's really how he starts off with. I'm going to start off with the butter stick portion. You want to go toward the middle, start out the middle, the left top portion of your page. So somewhere right around here. And this is where I'm going to very lightly start to sketch in this rectangle, this very long rectangle here. Once you have this long rectangle sketched in, very nice and light, you want to cut out a little section of it. And really I like to think of it as like this is a square over here and then you'll have a longer rectangle. So it almost looks like a refrigerator that you can toss and tipped over to the side. Now right where this small square is, I'm going to add in the start of Kaa's neck. It's going to be pretty thin at first, but as we get further away from his head shape, his body is going to widen out as like normal steaks do. I'll add in a stretched out U here. And I'll bring this over to the top left-hand corner, so it looks like a big U shape. I'm going to follow the curve of this line here, but again, as I get further away from the head shape, I'm just going to widen his body out gradually. So that way you'll see an elephant holding a butter stick. It's pretty much the only way I can see it every time I do. Now because I want him to look like he's coming out from the trees over here, this is where I'm going to start to sketch in these like leaves. And you don't have to have them looking exactly like mine. Honestly, you can have different leaf textures, but I like to think of them as like scales. So how they would layer on top of each other. Just drawing in these random football shapes kind of going in each direction. Kind of helping to showcase that, you know, again, these are just like the bushes that he's coming from. Now that we've lightly sketched all this in, I want to start darkening in some details. And this is where, if you didn't like something, this is where you want to leave it nice and light. If you did like something, this is where you want to darken it up. So I'm going to start off by darkening up some of these leaves here. Just kind of adjusting my leaves a bit just to make sure that they're spread out a little bit more. You're going to notice that anything you don't like is going to start to fade away, while the things that you do like are really going to start to pop out with these dark lines. This gives you a lot of control as the artist, so I don't expect you all to love the first thing that you sketch in, but definitely know that you do have options and you don't have to darken up the first line that you sketched in. Now the Jungle Book came out, I believe in 1967, but it did release, it was the last film that Walt Disney had ever got to work on before he passed away in 1966. He never got to see the completion of this film, but a lot of people see this film as a pretty important one, as again, it's the last one that he ever got to work on. This book, this movie is inspired by the book, The Jungle Book. Although the book is a little bit more serious, it does have a little bit more danger to it. And Walt Disney really wanted to lighten up the mood of this film, so that way it wasn't just so serious, and it just had some fun and wacky things to it too. So one of the things that he did was he enlisted the help of the Sherman Brothers. Does anyone recognize who the Sherman Brothers are? Or just kind of like, oh, that sounds familiar. Yes, I got a yes. Does anyone know what they have worked on in the past? Mary Poppins is a big popular one, but they actually worked on a lot of different projects throughout the years while working with Walt Disney. Walt Disney really loved to find talent that he thought was amazing, and he always reused that talent in his film. In fact, there are actually 2 voice actors in The Jungle Book in which he reused in his other films as they come on. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But for now, I'm going to start sketching in where his eye is going to go. So we want to go right here where this line is touching the top of our rectangle. And over to the right, I'm going to start sketching in this oval or like this egg shape. And does anyone want to take a guess at what this is going to be? Yeah, it's going to be his eye. I know, don't be scared. Okay. This is going to be his eye, so definitely we want to see this. I'm going to go back around. I'm going to start to darken up this eye, just like how I did the leaves, keeping it nice and round, very soft. And then from this eye, we can really build off the top and really the sides of Kaa. So I'm going to go over here to the very top here. I'm going to add in this kind of curvy line. This should follow the curve of the eye. And then I'm going to add in like a candy cane, and this is going to go outside of our rectangle just a little bit, but I want to bring it right back to the side of his neck, just kind of blending this together. at this point in time, we can really just go back in and really lock in all these features for this, and then also we can lock in the features of his body. As you're locking in the body, if you have any sharp edges, so like here it almost looks like I have a corner at the bottom, this is where I want to round out that corner, because I don't want it to look like he's super, super sharp point. He does move, because remember, he's a snake, so he's got more of these curved lines. He's almost like a wacky villain in a way, because he is definitely trying to eat Mowgli, like no mistaking that. But he is kind of a little bit more silly in that way, where he almost seems like he doesn't know what he's doing quite. Like he doesn't really know. Maybe this is his first time heading out to find food on his own. Who knows? Now, like I mentioned, there are 2 voice actors who were pretty prominent in this film, but have appeared in other Disney films. The first one is Phil Harris. He was the voice of Baloo. Phil Harris actually really brought the Baloo to life with his voice acting. They used him for other Disney films as well. One of the most prominent ones that I think I always remember is he's Thomas O'Malley in The Aristocats, but he's also Little John in Robin Hood. But the one that we're drawing right now, Kaa, the voice actor for Kaa, his name was Sterling Holloway. Walt Disney really loved Sterling Holloway. He loved his voice. And he's not only the voice of Kaa, but he's also the voice of the stork from Dumbo, the Cheshire Cat, my other favorite, Roquefort, the little mouse from The Aristocats. The Aristocats is one of my only VHSs that I own, so I watch it over and over again. So I have a lot of soft spots for those characters. But yeah, again, kind of like we always constantly use different talent, and he always wanted to reuse talent in a lot of his films. Once you have and gotten to this point where all these lines are darkened in, you're about halfway done with Kaa. How's everybody doing? Good. All right, got some goods, got some silence. No worries. Are y'all having fun?
Yeah.
All right, rock on. Now, if you're not seeing Kaa just yet, we're missing a big portion of what makes him look like himself, which is where the front of his snout is, and it's very round. So we're going to go and we're going to darken up first the top of the rectangle. So whatever you have for the rectangle here, this is where we're going to darken it in all the way to the corner. But I'm going to keep my lines nice and light at first as I go ahead and kind of carve into the rectangle here to create more of a rounded out snout for him. The bottom of his smile pretty much almost touches the bottom of your rectangle, but as you can see, it's just shy of it. And I'm going to bring this nice big, kind of like boxy U shape pointing back up to where his eye is. Now, like I said, Kaa is a little bit kind of zany, so I like to add in like this little S shape over here, just to kind of give him that more silly look to him. And then for the bottom of his jaw, or his bottom jaw here, I'm going to add in more of like a stretched out rainbow, kind of pointing down. And from the very end of this stretched out rainbow, I'm just going to pull a nice big stretched out rainbow right back to the side of his neck. So you're going to see it's very cartoon stylized as to what a snake would look like. Speaking about snakes, Kaa is inspired by a real species of boa constrictor that is from India, known as a rock python. Rock pythons, though, they don't normally are in trees. They're actually more by the rivers. Their back patterns actually are like rounded out stones. They blend in with the stones of the river, and that's how they await for their prey. I will say though, sorry if I'm getting into more of like Animal Planet now. My degree is in animal science, so I know a lot about animals. All right, I'm going to go back in, lock in all these features here. Now we can start to draw in more of his patterns. I'm going to go over here to the top. I'm going to add in this stretched out U. And I'm going to draw in what's known as a pit organ. So this is like what his nose would be. The pit organ for snakes, this is how it allows them to see. So they can really look with like heat vision, and that they use that little organ there. So they don't really smell like the way we do, but they see in a different way, and that's what they use it for. Just like a little hole, it almost looks like a little apple seed there to the very end of his snout. Now I'm going to go over here from the very right-hand side of his face. I'm going to follow the same curve I've already created for his back. I'm going to lock this in so we can see this. And then I'm just going to start to follow his back to create that pattern from the difference between where his belly scales are going to be from where his back is. Now as I get closer here toward the bottom, I'm going to really just start to blend this in and create almost like a point, because I really want to start to see more of his back scales as we get further away from his head, just to give him a little bit of movement, almost like he's turning in the trees. Now, does anyone remember Kaa's song from the Jungle Book? Yeah, it's Trust in Me. But you know, like I said earlier, the Sherman Brothers helped to create a lot of these songs for the Jungle Book. And part of creating songs, sometimes they don't use songs from other films, so they reuse them in future films. And Trust in Me was actually a song that was meant for Mary Poppins. It was going to be The Land of Sand. It was going to be a lullaby. But they, kind of thought it didn't fit at the time, and so they kind of put it back on the back burner. And when they were creating the songs for the Jungle Book, they realized, oh man, this would be a really good song for Kaa, and really kind of reused it in that way, and reused all the melody. I'm going back, I'm adding in these back scales. As you can see, as I'm seeing more of the back, I'm seeing more of these scales, or this pattern. Kind of looks like, again, big stones. And I like to shade them in just to show the difference here between them. We're pretty much almost done, but we're really missing something that really helps a character come to life. Does anyone know what we're missing right now? Yeah, we're missing the eye, the pupil of his eye. Because we got the eye, but we don't really, it kind of looks a little spooky right now. Like he went on the Haunted Mansion, he was like a changed python. So I'm going to go to the very inside of his eye. I like to have him looking out like he's looking over to the side. So I'm going to draw in this very small little beady eye for him. I'm really going to shade this in nice and dark so you see all that focus and attention right here into the eye. If you want to add in a little bit more of that hypno eye for him, by all means, please do so. That really kind of adds a little bit of whole new personality to a drawing, especially one when it comes with Kaa. All right, we're almost done with Kaa. The final couple things I'm going to add in are going to be a tongue for him. This kind of like flows out like a little stretched out S. I'll add in just another little curve here just to give him like a forked tongue. But a big thing that he has that you see in the animated film are you can really see his belly scales. Now the belly scales are not like the normal scales on top. This is where more science stuff comes in. This normal scales are kind of layered, but belly scales are like big and flat and they go across the entire, almost like a belt, but like multiple belts going up. This helps snakes move very smoothly through different textures, and definitely when they're trying to get away from something, it helps them to move very quickly. Now the belly scales, you don't want them to be too dark. In fact, I would just use light lines for these. And then you just want to add in a small curve to them just to kind of give a little bit more of like that depth and just give more of that shape to Kaa. But that's it. That's all you need for your very own Kaa from the Jungle Book. Of course, you can always add in or darken up any lines that maybe you start to see fading away. Maybe you want to add in some other extra little details. Maybe you want to draw in a churro or maybe an ice cream cone, like he's looking at an ice cream cone. It's up to you. This is your own drawing. But just don't forget to find a good spot somewhere next to him. And don't forget to sign your name.